With all that's going on, where do you think we are in this race?
Yeah, pretty stuck. Maybe a touch better for President Biden, but it's very problematic across the board. And I think anybody that says they know who's going to win in November is not really paying attention to what's going on. And, hopefully he has a good debate here next Thursday. But we're watching closely. But I would call this stuck in a pretty narrow trading range, and it's pretty close.
What do you think about these fundraising numbers, though, James? Should the Biden campaign be worried?
Well, I think President Biden has raised a lot of money. Some guy writes you, one of the Mellons, a big guy that never worked a day in his life, would get $150 million check. That's a pretty good number right there. But I'm not too concerned about our ability to raise money now. I think we're raising good money in our Senate races. I think the state party's probably doing pretty well. I'm not overly concerned about that.
Susan, we are seeing, yes?
No, I was just asking James because he's been a political strategist for so long. What is Donald Trump's prep team like? I mean, what do they say? All right, here's your opening statement. This debate is rigged. And then it's just going to be, it's fixed, and Hunter Biden. I mean, is that pretty much how you prep Donald Trump?
I don't think he prepares. And I agree with Matthew Dowd. He doesn't even know who he's going to pick as vice president. He got a bed one morning and decided to pick somebody. I have always been of the opinion and continue to be of the opinion, there's a good chance he doesn't show up. He'll just get up out of bed tomorrow, the 27th, and say, hey, why am I doing this? And it's very impulsive. He said he was going to testify on his own behalf at his trial. Of course, he never did, never even put on the defense. And just because Trump says he's going to do something is no indication whatsoever that that's something that's going to be done. So I stay skeptical, but I don't think he's prepared. I think he's going to try a couple of things and a couple of stunts, and hopefully President Biden is well prepared and ready for that.
I was just going to say, I would take the bet, James, that Donald Trump shows up for the debate because Donald Trump, I think, believes that he can eviscerate President Biden in the debate. I don't know that that's true, but I think that's what Trump believes he can do. He has a lot of confidence. He has been very aggressive on the debate stage. As you know, it's super hard for candidates to figure out how to counter that. You saw Joe Biden last time around try to deal with the interruptions and finally say, will you please shut up, man, which is a very memorable debate line. But I think Trump is really eager to debate because he portrays these two versions of Biden. One is the kind of a guy who'll be very skilled and he'll have the moderators on his side. On the other hand, he says what I think he really believes, which is that Biden won't be hard for him, that Biden will be a weak opponent and that he can show him up next Thursday.
Look, Susan, you know a lot. You and I've known each other for I don't know how many years. I just try to make provocative predictions, and if I'm wrong, I'm a gambler. I'm wrong a lot. It costs me a lot of money. Journalists
everywhere appreciate the fact that you make outrageous predictions, some of which you believe.
Yeah, but I just don't think Trump's going to figure it's not in his interest. But I don't know. That's just sticking my finger in the wind.
Eddie, what do you think we're going to get in this debate?
Chaos, absolute chaos. It's going to be, we're going to be overrun from Trump's side with nonsense. I think Biden's task is to stay steady in the midst of what will be an onslaught. Donald Trump believes, I think Susan is right in this regard, that he is the master of this form. And he thinks he's going to step in front of those cameras and he's going to manhandle Joe Biden. I think it's important for Irish Joe to show up and pop him in the chin, to pop the convicted felon in the chin. But I don't know how substantive it will be. It will be an indication of the depth of where we've fallen in terms of our politics. So my expectation, if he shows up, because I trust James's wisdom here, but my instinct tells me that he's going to be there. It's going to be an absolute mess, in my view.
I would say in politics, the third shot is the one that counts. Because unlike tennis, they're going to return your serve. Okay, there's no.
Okay.
They're going to return it, and what you want to do, and I think, Mary, you can tell me this. You really train to get in position for that third shot when your serve comes back.
Yeah.
So understand, he'll launch an attack. Trump will have some kind of answer, and just be ready for a short sentence, because the third shot is the kill shot, and they got to be ready for that.
I'll be watching for that. I like that.
Yeah, no, and I've always caught that and believed that. Never was much of a tennis player, but I do know that I've seen these guys, they have a best in serve, that it doesn't come back, but in politics, it always comes back to you. And sometimes you can just kill them with that third shot.
But think about the fact that we're a week out from this thing, and Donald Trump is already working the refs, trying to complain about the moderators.
Right.
Mary, pretend these two players are athletes. What does it tell you that one athlete is not deep in training? He's out there already complaining, saying this thing's rigged against him.
I think that's a terrible idea. But I mean, what's great about sports is it's a level of excellence that you really have to earn. You earn your muscles. You earn the consistency. I mean, politics is theater. It's different from sports in that way, isn't it? And Donald Trump loves a good theater. He's very theatrical. He's very dramatic. Even when he's not making any sense, he's loud about it.
Susan, we're seeing some people come off the bench that we haven't seen before. Melinda French Gates this week came out and endorsed Joe Biden, and she said she had to. Everything is at stake when it comes to women and girls. Were you surprised that we heard from her? And do you think more voices like hers will come out soon?
I think there is a sense among a lot of Americans that this is an election with stakes we've never faced before, never in modern times. The future democracy. There are some Trump supporters who think that way, but there are a lot of supporters of President Biden, or maybe people who haven't taken sides yet, who believe there would be a danger to democracy to elect Donald Trump with some of the proposals he's made, some of the ideas of taking control of the Justice Department, for instance. And so, yes, I think that we'll have some endorsements like that. But you know what? I'm not sure I think these endorsements matter very much. I think what is more likely to matter to voters, and what accounts, I think, for this slight improvement that we've seen in several national and swing state polls for Joe Biden, is how people feel things are going in their own lives, not what a celebrity or an executive or a philanthropist tells them. Right. So if the economy, has been going pretty well, inflation in slightly better check, wages are going up, unemployment continues to be at record lows, I think that's why Biden is doing a little better. Even in the Fox News poll, for the first time since October, this week, Biden led Trump in the Fox News poll, and I think that is what that reflects.
I think Susan is absolutely right. You can get celebrity endorsements, Stephanie. I mean, that will be okay. That's fine. But it's all about the blocking and tackling on the ground. I think Biden has the campaign has to flood the zone. The GOTV has to be intense, particularly in Milwaukee, in Detroit, in Philadelphia, in Atlanta, or Fulton County. Right, flood the zone. We need to get folk on the ground to get folk out, and you can have endorsements. That will excite people, I suppose, but at the end of the day, you need a ground game, and the ground game can defeat Trump and his chaos, I believe.